Today we are talking about the Pinoy love language, Sumbong, or to tell on. Why is Sumbong a language of love for Filipinos? And how do you love someone back when you're there using this love expression? Are Filipinos truly bilingual? We use the same language at home but speak in love languages foreign to each other, together but separated. Kamusta? I'm Rowan, licensed psychotherapist mom, immigrant twice, first generation Pinay raising my mixed Filipino-American children in America. I found that after visiting 500 Filipino homes, I continue to be a student of the culture. In this podcast, we would be seatmates in this beautiful cultural classroom. And by the way, did I tell you I need my kaping barako straight from Batangas before each class? If you're interested in learning the deep intricacies of the Filipino culture, especially as it merged with American culture, talks about trauma-informed care and deepening your Filipino relationships across generations, which includes my fave topic, Pinoy love languages, you're in the right place. This episode is brought to you by the masterclass called Pakiramdam, Filipinos and Affection Beyond Words. Here you will discover your culture from a different lens and see your loved ones in a different light. Go check it out in the show notes. And also, don't forget that you can leave me a voicemail. I'll be so stoked, so happy, so excited, and I'll definitely give you a shout out. Just go check the show notes and then click the link that says leave a voicemail. Kamusta? I hope you're having a good day. This is Rowan and welcome to the Pinoy Love Language podcast. I receive a few emails from women telling me that they have been listening, and some of them have mentioned that they've been listening with their moms, and this is so heartwarming for me. If you're listening right now, you send me one of those emails. I so thank you. Even though this is a solo platform, like I'm one on one with my mic, it is a collective project. I always envision that as I'm talking, there are women and men behind me. So I thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so heartwarming. Now, let's talk about Sumbong. Sumbong is a love language, Pinoy love language that means to tell on. So if someone started bullying you in school, you might say, "Sige ka, isusumbong kita sa kuya ko." You'll see, I'll tell you on my kuya. He'll take care of you, basically. Filipinos' collectivistic nature is understood by representation, that a child is not merely a child but represented by his parents, siblings, his titos, lolos, lolas. The same representation that gives you a chip on your shoulder is also the same pressure one feels to act right as not to misrepresent the whole. Now, the Pinoy love language of Sumbong understands that a village exists behind the child, so you better not mess with that child. Don't forget that the 5 Pinoy Love Language ebook is available now. This ebook is easy to digest but gives you an understanding of the unique ways Filipinos express love, deepening your cultural identity and understanding, but ultimately understanding you in your Filipinx relationship. Check out the links in the show notes. In our Western culture, we are taught to rely solely on ourselves as an illusion to be extremely self-reliant. So how does this sumbong practice in the Filipino culture actually begins? And here's one of my theory, just observing children a lot back home and also here, when a child in the Philippine culture context, so in the Philippines, gets hurt, usually the parents would say, "Oh, of course, are you okay, right?" And would begin, if it's the table or the chair that the child was hurt on, the parent would might spank that space or that object and would say, okay, palo, I palo the chair. Basically, the externalizing and externalization, rather than what do you need? Are you okay? Allowing the child to express. The person fixes it for the child. Okay, I took care of it. Basically, there's a big person. I'm the big person for you, and I'm here to protect you. Now, you probably have heard me mention that in any Pinoy love language, there is a light and shadow side, right? Now, this might give way to a faulty loyalty or a false sense of self that one is the hero and one needs to be rescued. There's a whole gamut that this can give our deeper psyche, which I will not explore in this episode, but just in the way it manifests in our Filipino homes, in our own relationships. Now, one of ways that we also now utilize sumbong, it's possible that because we don't have a robust policing system in the Philippines, people would take, as they say, take matters into their own hands. And of course, there is really a variation here when it comes to socioeconomic status. But if you think someone messed with your sister, did something awful, rather than going through the legal process, calling the police, the mistrust in that system, one might simply activate the Pinoy love language of Sumbong, and the kuya would take care. Sumbong could also be a way to solicit lambing, which is another Pinoy love language, trying to solicit affection. Does that person care for me? And I want to give you an example of an interracial couple that in my practice. So just a quick snippet. So the woman is the Filipina and the husband is the non-Filipino. The woman keeps sharing that someone at work is irritating her, and she's not really saying that she's being bullied, but she's actually trying to activate the Pinoy love language of Sumbong. And the husband would usually say, "Oh, okay. Well, how did you respond? What are you planning to do?" Now, the wife is actually wanting the husband to make her feel protected, even though he might not be doing something at all, but just by his verbal response. For example, oh, okay, did you want me to talk to that person? Would usually be the response. Not, of course, everyone in the islands. Of course, that's never true when we say everybody, but a collective expression. Oh, did you want me to talk to that person? Are you okay? Did they say anything? Did you want me to, what's the phone number of that person? So it might not be something that the person would actually do, but just by response, someone is soliciting that feeling of protection. Now, Sumbong could also be a way for someone to ask another person to be a cultural mediator when there is a tension between two people. So maybe your mom would call you and she'll make Sumbong, tell on your sister. Your sister, she's so disrespectful, and I can't believe she said this. And usually, if you respond, if the mom is trying to activate a she might be trying to activate other things, but let's focus on Sumbong. If she's just trying to solicit, that Pinoy love language, the response would be, oh, okay, you validate mom's feelings. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. Did you want me to talk to her? Basically, is what the person making the Sumbong usually wants to hear, that the Sumbong lamentation has been acknowledged. Now, of course, that might not be your response. And of course, you might not want to get in the middle of your mom and your sister, but I am sharing with you what the person is hoping. There is a longing to be acknowledged. Now, you don't have to acknowledge in that way. In fact, it's very appropriate to set boundaries if you feel like that's called for, but it's useful to actually use pronouns that are collective, plural, if you will. We can just say, oh, do you want us to talk to sister? When you set boundaries where it only sounds like you're setting boundary because it's good for you rather than it's good for the unit, the immigrant might not take that well, is not used to that language. The reason for that is in our language, there usually is a collective, even though when we're talking to someone. If you're talking to someone that you respect, you might say kayo, even though you're talking to one person. Saan kayo pupunta? So there's a collective. So one way to be more successful in setting boundaries is to use plural pronouns. I can't do that, mom, but what would you like us to do? Is an example. Again, I'm sharing that there's always a shadow and a light parts of the Pinoy love language. So I leave you this question. How would you plan to be loving when a loved one sumbongs to you, tells on someone? How would you plan to show them you care while you're setting healthy boundaries? I hope I've given you some tips. For now, I'm really hoping you're having a wonderful day, a wonderful evening. And I thank you for allowing me to take up some space in your day. And I'll talk to you soon. Sa ulitin!